Hi, in this video, we'll be learning to write basename. Basename is a utility which lets you pick the name of a file. Let's look at a few examples. If I ask basename slash user slash bin slash sort, it'll give me sort because that's the base name of the file. You can think of the basename as the last component of a path. If I say bin slash sort, it still gives me sort. And if I say basename sort, it gives me sort. For now, in this video, we'll only work on taking one path name as input and printing the base name for that path name. In the next video, we'll add more options. For example, base name has not a lot of options, but we'll go and add support for them in the next video. It's a very simple utility and will give us a really good way to use different Python modules and do some simple Python programming. So let's get started. Now I will start by creating a file. I'll call that basename.py. All Python files are suffixed with .py. For C program files, they're usually suffixed with .c. So how about we write if name equals main and pass. So for scripts like a Python or a Python module, if name equals to main is a way for the Python interpreter to find out whether you're actually executing this script or importing some other script or importing this script in some other script. If the name of this script is main, that means you're actually calling this from the Python command line. Let's see what I mean by that. So basename.py called from command line. So let's say Python3 basename.py. And so what happened was Python called basename.py from the command line and set the name of this base names double underscore name or double underscore to be main, because that was the script called on the command line. What happened was Python called this basename.py on the and set its name double underscore name double underscore variable to the string double underscore main double underscore, and this if condition evaluated to true, and that's why we got a print where we print this message. So now our first task is to see if we can get all the arguments given to the program. In Python, unlike C and other languages, you can use the sys module to get the arguments to this file. For example, let's try this. As you can see, when I call basename.py from the command line, the value of sys.argv is a list with the first element equal to the name of the script. How about if we give this list another parameter? So basename gets passed a list of 2 elements. The first is the name of the script and the second is the first argument of the script. We can do something like, let's say, CPU. And so now you see that sys.argv contains all the parameters to this particular script, and that's how we're going to use that to get the arguments and process them. However, how about let's look at what lists in Python look like. So I'm going to Python3. So I open up Python3 shell. If you don't provide any argument to the Python3 executable, it drops you into a shell where you can type in any commands. So a list is defined by a pair of square braces. So this is an empty list. Then this is a list of 1 element, 2 elements, 2 integers, and 1 strings. As you can see, Python allows you to match and mix different type of values inside a list. You can find the length of a list, and you can also index elements from a list. So this means from the list 1, which has 2 elements, 1, 3, give me the first 0th element, and 0th would mean the first element in the list, so I get 1. So that's a short crash course about list. We'll come back to list in much more detail when we write more complex programs. For now, I think that should be good enough. And so you can also for strings, you basically put them in either a single quote or double quotes, and you can treat a string almost like a list. For example, you can index the elements from a string just like you would do in a list. You can find the length of a string, and yeah, they're pretty much similar in the way we'll use them that in this program, but we'll go into much more detail in later videos. Okay, so now I know that the name of the program, so now I know that the name of the program is the first argument of this first element of the sys.argv, and the name of the argument would be in sys.argv1. And so let's check that out. If I simply go there, and yeah, so we get the first argument to this program, and we just print it out for now. Now you might be wondering if it's okay to simply index into the list when we don't even know its length, and that's a pretty valid question, because if we call basename.py with no other arguments, we get a exception, and we'll go into exception and how to handle them in later. But this is if you come from a C or C++ background, this is much more cooler compared to them, because most of the code in C or C++ usually depends on returning a value back from the function, or and not really throwing exceptions. But in Python, the way you write code is, if you encounter a condition which is not right for your use case, you basically throw an exception, and you assume that the caller would handle that exception, or in this case, we don't really handle it. So what happened was, our sys.argv only had one element, and the first element is at index 0, which would be the name of the Python script, and the other argument, and we tried to index into the first element, which is not there. And so the list module threw an exception called index error, saying list index out of range. To avoid that, we check whether .argv has a length greater than 1. If it is, we print the argument provided. Otherwise, we'll simply say that you're not using this program correctly, and you should provide us a name argument. Now, I used a feature of Python which lets you build strings from variables or values. Let's see how that works. So let's go back to the shell and set a variable x. So these strings are called f strings, and you can basically write any string in them. So if I just say x, I'll just print x. However, if I want to replace a value in this string with a variable's value or another value, I can basically put them in between these curly braces and write the name of the variable, and that will take the value of that particular variable. And so this f string evaluates to x equals to 1. In our script, when we say print usage curly braces sys.argv0, and you remember that sys.argv0 is the name of the script, which will be the base name, so it will print this message as usage base name name. So let's try that out. Yep. And so why we did that was because, what if you tomorrow rename that to my base name or some other file name? We would like to show the correct message in that case. So now we have a pretty decent message in case we run into an error and the user does not provide the name argument. But if the user does provide a name argument, well, it'll just print the name argument to the to our terminal. That's all good. And so now let's recall how basename, the original basename, works. So the basename gives us the very last component um, of a name. And if you think about it, how it basically, if you want to implement this function, how about if we start from the very end of this argument, keep on moving to its beginning, and stop when we see a slash. If we do that, we can basically extract this portion of the string, and that will be our result. Now you might ask, what happens if we have no slash in the name? In that case, we'll start with the very end of the name and keep on moving towards the front, and stop when we have exhausted all of the string and not found any slash. So let's try that. So I'll say name index equals to length of name minus 1. Recall that length of name would be the length of the string. So that will be 4 in this case, and 13 in this case. But we also know that the indices in Python are, and so we want to start at the very end of the string, and so we basically subtract 1 from the length of the total of the name, so that if we, for example, wanted to start at T, we would go 0, 1, 2, and 3, and the length would be 4, so we subtract 1 from that. Now we just want to keep on moving towards the beginning of the string. So we say, if while the index is greater than or equal to 0, and we haven't found a slash, we basically subtract 1 from the index. Okay, so now let's try a program. So this is how we write while loops in Python. We basically said check the value of name index if it is greater than 0, and if the name index is not yet a slash, decrease the name index by 1. So let's try that out here. So you started at T, that's like 3, and then you check if the index is greater than 0. It's true. And is the name index slash equal to slash? No. So you subtract 1, and then you keep on moving forward to and stop when the name index is greater than or equals to 0, because both of these conditions should satisfy. If the name index is at the very end, the name index in this case will become -1, because we never see a slash, and then this condition will fail, and so the loop will break this loop and basically come out of this loop. In the other case, we'll start with I guess 12, and then 11, 10, 9, and as soon as we hit 8, we'll break out of this loop, because at that point we have seen a slash, and that's why we see a 8 in our terminal. Let's try this with sort, and we should see a -1. So now our task is basically to find the string from this particular position to the very end. So from this -1 to all the way to the end. So that brings us to slicing. In Python, a slice is a part of a string or a list or many different objects. Again, you don't really need to know what objects or anything is. For now, we'll just stick to the basics and we'll learn all of them as we move along. So if I want to slice, let's say 1, 2, 3, it's give us L and I. So what we are asking Python here is give me indices 1 to 3, not including 3, because this second argument is not included in the slice, from the string slice. And so it says, so the Python interpreter it goes 0, 1, 2 and returns you this particular string. This works equally well with a list. So as you can see, Python does the same thing for us. Starts at index 1, goes to index 2, not including index 3, and returns us a new list. And why I mention it here, because if you see, name index is the position in this our string where we either see a slash or we are at the beginning of the string. So if we slice from that name index +1, because we don't want to include the slash or nothing here in this case, and go to the very end of the string, we will get our base name. This is a simple trick though. If you exclude the index at the end of a slice, Python slices it to the very end. For example, if you say give me a slice starting from index 1 up to the very end, it'll just do that. It's also true for the first argument. If you say give me a slice starting from the beginning up to, but not including index 3, it'll do exactly that. And so we can use this to our advantage and basically print name index to the very end. So we say give me the slice of name starting at name index +1 up to the end. Let's see if that works for us. It works in this case too. And we'll just, in this video, we'll just leave this here and come back and add more arguments. So we learn modules, how to use an element from a module. We'll go in much more details about what modules are and what objects are. But for now, you know how to get the arguments to a script, how to index into strings and lists, how to find a length of a string or a list. how to write a while loop, and include multiple conditions, and how to do slicing. We also looked at f strings, where you can basically replace the value inside the string. And we also saw what this particular variable under double underscore name double underscore is, and how it can be used to find if you're running that particular script from the command line. And so we'll finish this utility in the next video, and then we'll move on to something more complex. I'll see you later. Bye.